Good news! President Buhari tests negative to coronavirus. Bad news: his chief of staff, Buhari, tests positive. Some states moving closer to total lockdown as most government workers and residents now stay at home. On the international front, UK Prime Minister places country on lockdown. In sport, UEFA postpones European club finals.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. The president is breathing easy today after his Covid-19 test came out negative. Buhari was advised to undergo the test after his chief of staff, Buhari, tested positive for the coronavirus when he returned from an official trip to Germany. Buhari has since gone into isolation. He had not exhibited any symptoms before the test. Buhari was in Germany with Minister of Power Salim Maman to discuss Nigeria's power issues with officials of Siemens Company. On his return, the Chief of Staff wrote to the National Assembly decrying federal lawmakers whom returned from overseas trips and allegedly evade screening for coronavirus. The country now has 42 cases of coronavirus as 2 patients were confirmed today, 1 each in Lagos and Ogun states. Two southwestern governors have taken similar steps in their states to stem the spread of coronavirus. Governor Seyi Makinde of Oyo State has banned religious services, weddings, parties, burial ceremonies and other social gatherings of more than 30 attendees. In a broadcast on the pandemic, Makinde said his decision was taken as part of preventive measure to curb the spread of the coronavirus in the state. He also said his government has activated the disease surveillance and notification system officers in all local government areas and local council development areas in the state. Meanwhile, similar moves have been made in Ondo State by Governor Oluwarotimi Akeredolu. Political, social and religious gatherings in the state have been banned. Akeredolu went a step further by banning gatherings in beer parlors and clubs across the state. Government workers from grades 1 to 12 in the 2 states have been directed to stay at home. The federal government and Lagos State have given similar stay-at-home directives. No stone is being left unturned in this fight against coronavirus in the country. Transportation workers who attend to large groups every day also received some advice from the chairman of the National Union of Road Transport Workers, NURTW, in Lagos State, Musiliu Akisoya, who is popularly called MC Oluomo. He warned operators in Lagos State to abide by the rules and regulations of Lagos State government for the transportation sector. Oluomo said this is essential to curbing the spread of coronavirus in Lagos State. The NURTW chairman called on operators and members to avoid overcrowded parks and ensure their vehicles follow the guidelines for passenger loads. He directed operators to ensure they provide alcohol-based hand sanitizers in all the parks across the state. He also called for temperature readers to test passengers before they board any bus. Oluomo said there would be consequences for violators. Lagos State government has shown its seriousness in enforcing the crowd rule it enacted last week, limiting crowds to 50 at any gathering. Many churches were reported to have flouted the directive on Sunday. State enforcement teams swung into action on Monday and arrested 3 pastors for disregarding the directive. Deputy Commissioner of Police Muhammad Ali said the pastors were not detained but warned to comply with the order to prevent further spread of coronavirus. Meanwhile, the Lagos State government has sealed 1 mall and a plaza in Lekki for violating the directive banning large social and religious gatherings, parties and clubs in the state. Prime Mall and Mega One Plaza in Lekki were sealed on Saturday, hours after Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu mobilized law enforcement agencies to ensure adherence to the directive. The enforcement team says it would move around the state to ensure strict compliance. Governor Sanwo-Olu says the reason for the directive is to protect and save lives in the fight against coronavirus. Sundays, Wednesdays, and sometimes Fridays are heavy religious days in Nigeria. Up to a week ago, it was unimaginable that a frenzy of church activities, services, and attendant traffic could be quieted just like that. Well, the COVID-19 pandemic has done just that, and reporter Deji Badmus went around town on Sunday and found this report.
This road is usually packed with cars on both sides every Sunday morning, and it's because of this church. But this Sunday, it's a different picture. Complying with the directive of the Lagos State government limiting the number of worshippers in churches and mosques to 20, the church has decided to cancel its service altogether.
I've been discovered that it's a global problem, and what everybody is trying to do is to provide solution to whatever that is happening and to protect the lives of the people. The best we could do is to suspend the service and also to keep on praying for every member of the church, wherever they may be, so that they will not be affected. And not this alone, to also pray generally for the entire populace in the country.
And it's not only Christ Apostolic Church. Many other churches in the city also locked up their gates, asking members to pray from home. A few weeks ago, this would have been unimaginable in a deeply religious country as Nigeria. Authorities say this is going to be the new norm for some time.
I believe that in the course of praying to God, that there's going to be a divine intervention that will bring everything into permanent solution.
And talking about solution, this molecular biologist and clergyman says he and his team of researchers are working on a homegrown one and only require support to complete it.
My proposal is looking at how to actually stop the virus to have its way to the host cell. And if this virus can get inside the cell, before you know, even the natural immune system will mop up the virus. Because the strength of the virus, including that of Ebola virus, is that when they invade the cell and they're able to get to the cell, they can degrade the cell, and with that they can multiply easily in the cell, and that can make it deadly. So that is where our research is looking towards, and we have quite a number of things that we are proposing to run the research that can eventually be formulated as drugs.
His proposal sounds quite exciting, but without the needed funding, it might continue to remain in the cooler. And while the country hopes for a scientific solution to the COVID-19 pandemic, it is also praying for a divine one.
Before now, many Nigerians had been going to churches and mosques to pray away COVID-19 from the country. They would now have to do so from their homes. It's something many religious people in this country never imagined, but it's a reality that they now have to live with, at least until COVID-19 is fully contained here.
Coming up, African stories. 30-year-old Zimbabwe journalist dies of coronavirus, first COVID-19 fatality in the country. And later, international news. Boris Johnson orders UK citizens to stay at home over COVID-19.
You are watching ANN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to African stories. Coronavirus has claimed its first casualty in Zimbabwe. A 30-year-old journalist, Zororo Makamba, died 2 days after he was diagnosed with the disease. Zimbabwe's Information Minister, Monica Moswangwa, said she was shocked over Zororo's death. The minister said the journalist started exhibiting mild flu-like symptoms a few days after he returned to Harare from New York. She said everyone who had contact with Zororo is now being traced. Moswangwa had advised Zimbabweans to take seriously COVID-19 threats and to follow due medical precautions as laid out by the Ministry of Health and the World Health Organization. Egypt and Ghana have reported new coronavirus deaths. Egypt's health ministry said on Monday 5 new persons have died of coronavirus, 4 Egyptians and an Indian, bringing the total of COVID-19 related fatalities in the country to 19. State media had announced on Sunday a senior Egyptian military official died from coronavirus. The next day, another senior military official was said to have died while fighting the coronavirus. Egypt now has a total 366 cases as 39 new coronavirus cases was reported on Monday. Meanwhile, Ghana says it has recorded a second COVID-19 death. 2 more cases were also reported, bringing the total number of confirmed infections to 27. Authorities say the patients are in isolation and receiving treatment. Ghanaians have been strongly encouraged to adhere to social distancing rules. South Africa is reporting a rise in coronavirus cases in the country to 554. That is an increase of 152 cases in a 24-hour period between Monday and Tuesday. In response to the rise in cases in the country, President Cyril Ramaphosa has announced a 21-day lockdown in an address on Monday. He said his government needed to escalate COVID-19 response to curb the spread of the outbreak. Businesses are now racing to make plans for the nationwide lockdown that takes effect by midnight on Thursday. South Africa has the highest number of confirmed coronavirus cases in sub-Saharan Africa, and public health experts are worried that the virus could overwhelm the health sector if there is a steep rise in infection rates. Health officials are working to expand the country's coronavirus testing capacity and develop a plan to ensure enough intensive care beds with respirators. Health Minister Zweli Mkhize says 2 patients are in intensive care, but there have been no deaths from coronavirus in the country. Agriculture Minister Toko Didiza said the government had taken steps to ensure the lockdown would not affect food security. It discouraged panic buying, saying the country has enough food supplies. The government in Mogadishu has intensified efforts to stem the spread of COVID-19 in Somalia. Health Minister Fawzia Abika has called on Somalis to remain vigilant and take prevention seriously. Reporter Abdulaziz Bilo has the story.
Prime Minister Hassan Ali Khair says his administration has set aside $5 million to contain the spread of coronavirus after the country recorded its first positive case. The government ordered the closure of all schools and universities across the country. It has also discouraged public gatherings to prevent the chances of COVID-19 spreading. But on Saturday, the Ministry of Civil Aviation and Air Transport announced a 2-day respite on the suspension to allow Somali nationals stranded at international airports a chance to return. Airlines given a green light to land include those from airports in Kenya, Ethiopia and the United Arab Emirates. Cargo flights have also been banned with exemption to humanitarian aid and emergency flights. On the streets of the capital, locals have welcomed efforts by the government to contain COVID-19.
It's our responsibility to ensure basic hygiene everywhere, at home, for our children, make sure we live in a clean place, and God willing, we hope this disease doesn't reach us.
There are always 2 ways to dealing with any crisis: prevention and treatment. There is no known remedy for coronavirus, therefore we must ensure we abide by health directives.
Traders have been warned against taking advantage of the ongoing situation to hike prices of basic items such as food and hygiene equipments. Prices of hand sanitizers in Mogadishu has drastically increased since the government declared the first positive case of coronavirus last week.
We have enough food and medicine to last us for a while. The government is implementing steps to contain the spread of the virus. We've had extensive talks with the business community and they have agreed to cooperate with the government as we seek to tackle the spread of coronavirus.
For now, screening at all airports continues. The government says early detection is the best way to prevent the virus from spreading to areas beyond the government's control.
When we return, international news. Boris Johnson orders UK citizens to stay at home over COVID-19. And later, sport. UEFA postpones European club finals.
You are watching ANN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. On the international scene, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson has ordered a 3-week total lockdown to tackle the spread of coronavirus. In a televised address to the nation, Johnson urged people to stay at home as he unveiled unprecedented peacetime measures after the country's death toll climbed to 335. The announcement came after outrage in government. The recommendations about reducing social contact to minimize close contact transmission of the virus are being ignored. As of Monday, there had been fewer than 7,000 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the UK, but 967 new cases in the past 24 hours. The Department of Health and Social Care says a total of 335 COVID-19 patients had died. Earlier this month, Britain recorded its first death in the outbreak, but has been criticized for its slow approach to containing the virus. It is certainly not a good time to be a migrant on one of those dangerous journeys, and thousands of them, including children, are stuck at Serbia's Hungarian border. Several thousand migrants who are fleeing war and poverty in their countries are stuck in the Balkans while seeking to move to the more prosperous nation in Western Europe. Reporter Aljoza Milenkovic tells us more.
Horgoš is a village in the Kanjiže municipality at the border with Hungary and the European Union. At its outskirts, dozens of migrants and refugees have set up a makeshift camp. And Ahmed arrived just recently. He says he's frustrated he cannot continue his journey to Germany or Sweden, and says he doesn't feel welcome in Serbia.
Yes, market, go. Doctor, go. Go, go. Why? I am to go Germany, not Serbia.
Ahmed's friend, who didn't want to be named or filmed, also doesn't understand why Hungary is not letting them in.
Why this is like suffered, like we suffered here, we slept here like about 6 months, and it's like bad, it's hard, it's tough, we have kids like.
The migrant coordinator in Kanjiža says locals are concerned about the number of people stuck near their village.
Around 3.5 months ago, we saw a mass influx. It was up to 300 people a day here. That's been worrying for us.
Serbia's Commission for Refugees says around 6,000 migrants are registered in the country. But it's thought there are many more under the radar. Most pass through the capital, where anti-migrant sentiment is also running high. The government has ordered migrants and asylum seekers living in state-run centers like this one behind to stay inside. They can only leave if they have special permission, and the restrictions are part of measures under Serbia's state of emergency to stop the spread of the virus. And with the EU, along with many other countries, closing its borders, it's not a good time to be a migrant. The global fear of Covid-19 could leave them stuck in Serbia for some time.
Even before the coronavirus pandemic swept across the world, healthcare professionals in Venezuela contended with an endless shortage of medicine and equipment. The worst nightmare of Venezuelan healthcare professionals became real earlier this month when COVID-19 was detected in the country. Since then, at least 70 cases of the virus have been confirmed there. An internist and director of Ancora Humanistas, a non-governmental organization in Venezuela, Dr. Oscar Nogura, says health personnel are already complaining about the lack of adequate clothing for their protection, while the increased emigration of doctors and nurses have left the hospitals in a vulnerable condition. In an attempt to contain the outbreak, President Nicolas Maduro has imposed a nationwide quarantine and restricted travel between states. The coronavirus is not only a public health emergency, it also poses a major threat to the world's economy. It has already caused global stock markets to crash, raising fears of a recession. Reporter Yong Shashan has the details.
As life gradually returns to normal in China, Europe and the US continue to struggle. Cities are locked down, social distancing is enforced. Fears over coronavirus and the sudden stoppages of economies have rattled the global market. Indexes like England's FTSE and the US Dow Jones Industrial Average have suffered gaping losses in the last 2 weeks.
The stock market, we think, is pricing in a very difficult outlook for the economies in both the United States and Europe. In fact, we think it's pricing in now a recession. We think a recession is already here. And the extreme levels of volatility reflect the very high levels of uncertainty and fear among investors because they really don't know what's going to happen next.
As we have seen that both the European governments and the US governments have already issued a series of stimulus policies. Do you think those policies are enough to stabilize the market?
Probably not in the short term, because what we do need to see is the virus start to be contained in those countries. And at the moment, we're still seeing infection rates rise very quickly. So these measures will help cushion the blow, but we don't think they're enough at the moment to cause an economic turnaround. That will only come when the virus is contained.
Standard & Poor's issued a global economic outlook report in mid-March, in which they slashed the global economic growth to levels between 1 and 1.5% from 2.8% originally. The report shows that industrial production in China staggered in January and February. The Chinese economy is recovering gradually, and experts say it will rebound in the second quarter after the Chinese government implemented effective counterattack campaigns and launched a series of stimulus policies like providing cheap loans, temporarily freezing household mortgages, providing payment relief to affected companies, and funding infrastructure nationwide.
We do think China's policies are proving effective. They are well designed, they're targeted at sectors that are most affected, and they are also targeting the labor market. So they are encouraging firms to hold on to their workers and keep paying them. And that's going to be very important for household incomes and consumption later this year as the economy recovers.
Despite some economic relief, economists say China should be cautious. Resumption of factory work and the return of overseas Chinese may cause an infection relapse, and shrinking global demand may hit the Chinese economy again. Other Asia-Pacific regions like Japan, South Korea, and Singapore are also facing similar risks. As the coronavirus spread across continents, it's turning a public health crisis into a global economic recession.
Up next, sport. UEFA postpones European club finals. Please stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News in Sport. National Stadium, Lagos has been shut down on Monday by the Sports Ministry. The government says the facility would be reopened when the coronavirus situation goes away. Lagos State Sport Commission has taken a similar action and shuts down its state sporting facilities. The usual early morning physical exercise and jogging have stopped in compliance with the directive. The biggest sporting event in the world has fallen victim to the coronavirus pandemic. The International Olympic Committee has announced a one-year postponement of the 2020 Olympic and Paralympic Games that would have taken place in Tokyo this summer. Meanwhile, UEFA has also postponed the Champions League, Europa League, and Women's Champions League finals. It is yet to announce new dates. The 3 European Showpiece Club finals were all scheduled to be held in May. That is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatuji. Have a pleasant evening.